Hey everybody, how's it going? This is Captain Sexy Pants, and this is the moment you've all been waiting for with bated breath. I am now going to give you my top 10 list for the top 10 scary movies that you probably haven't seen yet. Now, I'm sure all of you have probably seen one or two of these, but hopefully I did a good enough job in compiling this list that there's at least going to be a couple films on there you haven't seen that are worth checking out. There were a couple caveats, so I really didn't want to do too many like super low budget gore fests because those are fun to watch. But I wanted to find movies that actually scared me, that I thought were good enough, that I wanted to share with you. So now that that's out of the way, let's get right into the list. Boys and girls, here we go with the first film. The first film that we're going to be talking about today is Laid to Rest. Laid to Rest was released in 2009. It was directed by Robert Hall, and it stars a bunch of people you probably haven't heard of. The movie itself is a classic slasher, chock full of gore. The thing that I really enjoyed about this movie was the kills in it are very realistic. There's like a scene where somebody's getting beheaded, and the slasher guy, whose name is Chrome Skull, you can literally see him sawing through the flesh in her neck. It's kind of intense. This is one of those rare slasher films where you actually care about the characters, and in a couple of them, when they actually happen to die, you actually go like this for a second. Oh, well, that sucked. I rented this movie at a Blockbuster. It's just kind of a random, like Thursday afternoon kind of thing. I took it home and watched it, and then I rented it again a week later and watched it again. It's really pretty good. The killer, the bad guy, his name is Chrome Skull, and I thought that Chrome Skull had the opportunity to become the next Jason or the next Freddy. Unfortunately, in the sequel, which stars Brian Austin Green from 90210, yeah, that's how good the sequel is. Avoid it. Avoid it like you would avoid an ex-partner, ex-boyfriend, ex-girlfriend at the grocery store. Run, don't walk in the other direction. Avoid it at all costs. This movie is currently not available on Netflix or anything like that. However, it is available from anywhere between $2 to $3 on places like Amazon Prime or YouTube, the YouTube rental, which I actually really like. It actually works really well. If you're not using it, you probably should check it out. And like I said, it's about $3. It's a great way to kill a day. I'm sure you're gonna love it. If you've seen Chrome Skull, or not, if you've seen Chrome Skull, avoid it because that's what the sequel is called. But if you've seen Laid to Rest, the original from 2009, comment down below and let me know what you thought, because it's absolutely one of the top 10 best scary movies that you probably haven't seen. Thank you. Now we have film number 2. Film number 2 on the list might be my personal favorite that's actually on this list. Number 2 is Session 9. Now, Session 9 was released in 2001, was directed by Brad Anderson. Another great Brad Anderson movie is called The Machinist with Christian Bale. But one thing that both these movies have in common is a wonderfully fucked up ending. And I'm not going to spoil it, so I'm trying to be very careful, which is why another reason I don't want to leave the trailers in. The movie stars David Caruso as a man who runs a team of people that do asbestos removal. They go to this abandoned insane asylum, hospital, whatever you want to call it, and goes in to take it out, and a bunch of freaky bad stuff happens. This movie is legitimately frightening. This movie legitimately stayed with me for a couple weeks. I couldn't sleep for days. For those of you that have seen it, how awesome is this movie, and why is it not more popular is beyond me. This is the movie when you put in somebody's top 10 list, and I've seen it a couple times, but maybe just once or twice, and people always in the comments are like, oh my god, Session 9, how did I forget about this movie? It's 9 years old. Actually, it's 18 years old. I can't count. I'm pretty. I'm sexy. It says so on my hat. So it's not my job to do math. Um, this movie is currently available on Netflix. Straight up Netflix. Go watch it. This is definitely the under the cover, especially if you like films like The Conjuring and like the classic kind of ghost stories, all these James Wan movies that are floating around. This is going to be right up your alley. But there is this just impending sense of doom and dread that every moment of this film just kind of flows with, and it's good. It's real good, and it's real scary. So anyways, this is number 2 on the list. Please check it out. I'm sure you'll love it. Okay, let's get back into it. We have film number 3, which is oddly titled Zombie 2. Now, to explain the title a little bit, this is an Italian film, and in Italy they are known for pumping out countless sequels for movies that they didn't even make. Zombie 1 was in America called Day of the Dead, which was directed by George Romero, which is a great movie. When they brought it over to Italy, they called it Zombie, Zombi. And to get on the back of this great film, they made a sequel called Zombie 2, which has absolutely nothing to do with the George Romero classic. This movie came out in 1979, and it's directed by Lucio Fulci, who is a landmark, brilliant Italian director. It films The Beyond, House by the Cemetery, countless other films you can speak of. Now, as far as who's in this movie, it's a bunch of people you never heard of. Let's just keep it real. The movie is about this boat that lands in New York Harbor. The cops go onto the boat to check it out because there's no radio. It just kind of bumps into the dock. And when they get in there, a zombie kills the cops. Once they get it under control, it takes place in Indonesia, and I think the name of the island is Matul. And it's your basic zombie story. What this movie has that a lot of zombies movies don't have, and the reason that it's on this list, is there's some genuine moments of fright is probably the best way I can describe it. It's very intense. There's a scene with a bunch of dead bodies in a hospital, and they all kind of raise up in unison. You got to see it. This movie also has the classic moment of the shark versus the zombie. If you haven't seen this clip, you have to watch it. This was the movie that I put in the list. It's just fun. It's super gory, and there's some pretty cringe-worthy kind of stuff that happens in it. This is the reason why I made this list. This movie is not available anywhere on Netflix or anything like that. However, it is the $2, $3 on Amazon Prime, YouTube, pretty much anywhere that you can rent movies. It's definitely worth the view. There are probably about 300 or 400 different versions of this thing out on DVD, and you do yourself a great service and a great favor to check it out. I absolutely love this movie, and I hope you do too. Okay, and so here we go. Number 4, another criminally underrated gem in my top 10 movies, top 10 scary movies of all time that you probably haven't seen. Number 4 is Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon. This was a brilliant independent horror movie. It came out in 2006 and was directed by Scott Glosserman. Unfortunately, Scott Glosserman has not done a lot of movies since this came out. He did do a documentary on Wikipedia and about the lies and how perceptions are based on Wikipedia. I know. I kind of want to see it. It sounds kind of interesting. The movie does not have any marketable stars in it. However, there are a few guest appearances by some pretty big horror heavyweights. And without ruining that, because it's really cool to see him in the movie, so we're going to leave him out of this. Now, what Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon is about is a movie about Leslie Vernon. Leslie Vernon, it's a set up as a documentary, and Leslie Vernon is going to be the next great homicidal serial killer. In this universe, or in the setting of this film, people like Jason and Freddy and Michael Myers are real. And there's almost like a sense of competition between these heavyweights. And Leslie wants to create his story. He wants to create his mythos. And so he has this documentary film crew that follow him around. The movie is full of Easter eggs for different horror movies, especially Nightmare on Elm Street and Halloween are the two ones that kind of just jump right off at the top of my head. This is a classic piece of independent horror. I have no idea why this movie isn't more popular. It's absolutely brilliant. The ending is flawless. This movie has everything you want. Now, it might not necessarily be scary, but it is a brilliant piece of film, and you would do all you a great favor to yourselves to actually sit down and watch it. This constantly pops up on Netflix. It's currently not available on Netflix right now, but I know I've watched it twice on Netflix. It's another one of these $1 or $2 rentals, $1, $2, $3 rentals that you can find all over the internet, iTunes, Amazon, just Google Play, it's so easy to find a copy of this. I personally don't even have a copy of it on DVD because it's been so freaking hard to find. And once again, this is a fabulous piece of cinema, and you have to see it before you die, at least. This is a great Halloween movie, especially for fans of horror movies. All right, film number 5. Film number 5 is Shaytan. This is the first foreign film that's on this list. And if anybody knows anything about me, they know how much I love these foreign films. This is a French film. It came out in 2006, and it's directed by Kim Chaprion. My French is bad, so I don't even know if that's the right way to pronounce it, but we're just going to roll with that. The movie stars Vincent Cassel. Now, you've probably seen Vincent Cassel in a few movies because he's done a lot of American ones. He was in a couple of the Oceans movies. I think he was in Oceans 12 and in Oceans 13. Vincent Cassel plays the choreographer in Black Swan. And if you've seen that, that's a great film in its own right. The director hasn't really done much else. So what we have here in Shaytan is Shaytan's kind of a interesting film on its own. It's a erotic horror comedy. It's kind of the best way I can describe it. It's part slasher, it's part Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and it's part Blue Velvet, all kind of smashed into one. This is a really interesting movie. I saw it once, and when I was making this list, this was the random film that popped into my head. I can't find it to watch anywhere legally. I've checked with Zia. No, nobody seems to have a copy of it. The DVD is out of print, but it is available on some of those streaming sites that you give your computer viruses. So kind of watch it at your own risk. Number 5 on this list, once again, is Shaytan. That's spelled S-H-E-I-T-A-N, which is Arabic for demon, which is odd because there's no demon anywhere in this movie. Well, anyways, you should definitely check out Shaytan. Okay, number 6 on the list is High Tension. It's another French film, or the French title is Haute Tension. Haute Tension was released in 2003, and it was directed by Alexandra Aja. AJA. Like I said, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but that's my best shot. A couple other movies that Alexandra has directed was Piranha 3D, which is a fun mess of a good time on its own, and a Daniel Radcliffe movie, Horns, based on a Joe Hill novel and Stephen King's son. And once again, it's starring a bunch of random French people you probably never heard of. The movie is extremely controversial as far as the ending go, especially in the current political climate that we have. The ending is very controversial. For those of you that haven't seen it, I'm definitely not going to spoil it. It pissed a lot of people off. I personally really didn't get that bent out of shape about it, but I definitely could see why this would definitely mess you up. Here's a real interesting little fact about this movie. Now I'm going to have to look down and read through my notes so that I don't mess this up. Dean Koontz, an author who's wrote countless novels, wrote a novel beforehand called Intensity. When the movie came out, a bunch of people who saw it said, "Oh my God, this is so much like Intensity." So much like Intensity that it got back to Dean Koontz and wanted to know, well, what are you going to do? And Dean Koontz's quote was, he was asked if he was going to sue the filmmakers for copyright. He said that the movie was so vile, intellectually bankrupt, that he didn't want to be associated with it at all. So if that's any clue of just how freaking awesome this movie is, if that doesn't make you want to check it out, you're watching the wrong video. Check out High Tension, as it's called in America. Thank you. So here we go, down to the final three. Number 7 on the list, we have Ju-on the Grudge. Now, I'm sure plenty of you have seen the Sarah Michelle Gellar The Grudge, which is actually probably not a bad film on its own. However, the original Japanese one is scary as shit. It came out in 2002, and it's directed by Takashi Shimizu, and he's done a bunch of these J-horror movies and a bunch of horror films. But the one that kind of struck me when I was going over his filmography was that he directed a live-action version of Kikis Delivery Service. If that doesn't blow your mind, I don't know what will. Ju-on is available on all the streaming sites, all the rental streaming sites. It's a classic ghost story about a family who moves into a house that's haunted by two little kids. And without ruining too much of the movie, I'm going to kind of have to leave it at that. Once again, you fans of The Conjuring and The Nun and Annabelle and all this stuff would absolutely love this, because this movie came out in 2002. So 16 years ago, people in Japan were making the same movies that all you guys are salivating over now. Go see the cool OG stuff. This movie is definitely worth a watch and should not be hard to track down a copy. Please go check out Ju-on the Grudge. Let me know what you think about it. Thanks. Hey moviegoers. So while I was editing this video, I completely realized I missed number 8, The Descent. I saw Descent in the theaters and had an absolute blast with it, so I wanted to make sure I included it on this list. The Descent was made in 2005, and it was directed by Neil Marshall. Now, this name might be familiar to some of you because Neil Marshall also directed a couple of other really good movies named Dog Soldiers, which is a great werewolf movie, and Doomsday, which is like Mad Max, the current version of Mad Max before there was Mad Max. He also directed episodes of Game of Thrones, Westworld, and Hannibal. So this guy's definitely been around and definitely been tied to some pretty awesome projects. The Descent is a story about this small group of women who decide to go spelunking and cave exploring. Once they get into the actual caves, there's this family race of mutant creatures that have been underground for centuries. It's insanely gory. There's literally piles of pools and piles of bones, pools of blood. This is without a doubt the goriest movie on this list. I wanted to include one because this one happens to actually have a deft hand as far as the directing goes. When they're moving in and out through the caves in this movie, you even kind of catch yourself going like this, like you're trying to squeeze by too. This is a Gorehound's Dream. The ending was changed, and I don't necessarily know if I agree with the changing of the ending. You can find it on YouTube. The Descent is available on all the current streaming platforms for rent. It's never any more expensive than $2 or $3, and those $2 or $3 will give you 2 hours of a blast. Thank you. Okay, and here we go with number 9. We're getting awfully close to the end here. Number 9 is Near Dark. Near Dark is another classic that just kind of got lost in the shuffle. Near Dark is directed by Catherine Bigelow. Her name might not be familiar, but the Oscar that she won for Hurt Locker might ring a bell. She also directed Point Break, Zero Dark 30, and recently did Detroit, which is apparently a good movie that I really have been wanting to try to find a copy of. The movie stars Bill Paxton and Lance Henriksen, at least in my mind. The movie stars Bill Paxton and Lance Henriksen. The movie is a modern-day take on vampires. Now, considering that this movie came out in 1987, it's pretty much ahead of its time. It takes place in the current, I think it's in Texas. It's not available anywhere to watch through legit means, and no, you can't borrow my copy, no matter how many times you ask me or how nicely you ask me. It's a traveling group of vampires in a caravan, or in Winnebago, whatever you want to call, and the ending is not great. I hate to say it, but this movie has a pretty bad ending, especially if you're really into vampire fiction and any kind of vampire stuff at all. However, the Tangerine Dream soundtrack has to be heard to appreciate it. The movie is dusty and gloomy, and Bill Paxton is just fucking awesome in it. So if you're a fan of Bill Paxton, like your vampire movies with a little bit of realism, minus the ending, you should definitely check out Near Dark. The sad moment is here. We've now got down to the last film on my top 10 list of scary movies that you probably haven't seen. Number 10 shares a lot in common with number 8. Number 10 is Ringu. In America, it was called The Ring and was remade. And on its own right, it's not that bad of a movie. It actually scared me a little bit. But the Japanese one is absolutely terrifying. Ringu came out in 1998 and was directed by Hideo Nakata. He directed a few of the sequels. He also directed Dark Water, which on its own is a pretty good movie. This is a tale of a cursed videotape. You watch said tape, and in 7 days, you will die. Sadako, the villain, the ghost, the vengeful spirit, however you want to put it, is absolutely terrifying in this. This is probably a pretty good scary movie if you want to scare the shit out of a bunch of teenagers, because they have no idea what's going to happen, and when she crawls out of... There we go with the spoilers. I almost made it to the end. We're just going to leave that in because I think it's cute. So there you have it. My top 10 list of underappreciated, underseen horror movies. That's perfect fodder for this wonderful month of October. Thank you for the clouds today. I'll be back in one moment with a final recap. Thank you. Alright everybody, thank you for sticking around with me to the end. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, please comment down below on what your favorite scary movie of all time is. I might just be doing another list of the top 5 scary movies of all time for me personally, but everybody's done that. So if you have an idea for another top 10 list, if you like these kind of videos, please hit the like button and let me know what you think. I look forward to hearing from you, and once again, thank you for all the subscribers. I'm going to do something special when I get to 100. Maybe I'll shave my head. Maybe I'll dye my hair pink. Who knows? Captain Sexy Pants can do whatever the hell he wants. So in the immortal words of my favorite YouTuber of all time, Sunnyside, a peace.